What's up, everyone? Fantasy Ump here. This is my second time going live on YouTube. So again, I hope I'm doing it right. I hope the audio is coming through kind of clear on your end, and the lighting's at least decent or upgraded from week one. I got a lot of feedback, some of it positive, most of it negative. So appreciate that, guys, keeping me honest here. Hopefully you guys like the setup behind me, a lot of Giants memorabilia and some of my NFL gear. So you'll notice I got my Giants Eli jersey back on, baby. The G-Men represented. They showed out in week 3, unlike the first 2 weeks of the season. So pumped to see what those guys are doing and just hopefully, ride in the back of Malik Neighbors and seeing what he can do in his rookie season. So let's dive right in. So basically what I'm doing here is recapping week 3, taking a look ahead at week 4, some of those matchups, injuries that are going to play a factor there. Then, of course, touching on the waiver wire, top pickups. I know it's 10 o'clock Eastern time right now on Tuesday night, so we only have a couple of hours before the waivers actually run. So I'll try to get to that at the end. One thing I didn't do last time, there is a YouTube chat here. So if you have any questions, if you're tuning in, first of all, go ahead and like this, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. It's at Fantasy Umpire. I have a lot of takes throughout the week, especially on Sundays, watching the games. And then I try to do this recap video every week, although I skipped last week. So it is what it is, but I'm going to try to stay consistent and do this every week for the rest of the season. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet this week. First game on the docket is Patriots Jets, all the way back to last Thursday, September 19th was the date of that game. This was a highly anticipated return for Aaron Rodgers playing at MetLife. First time since his Achilles injury. He showed out. The whole team showed out. They beat up on the Pats. 24-3 is the final in this one. Patriots had a field goal in the second quarter, and that was about all they could do. Jacoby Brissett was held to under 100 yards passing. Drake May, we saw him a little bit at the end, 22 yards out of him. But Aaron Rodgers was, he was the show. He was the star. 27-35 for him, 281 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked a couple of times, but he looked fantastic. They protected him well. Braylon Allen ran like a madman, 55 yards for him and 11 carries. Breece Hall, 16 carries for 54 and a touchdown. This team was unstoppable. I mean, they barely even got Garrett Wilson going. He did more than most people do against Christian Gonzalez, the shutdown corner for the Pats. He had 5 for 33 and a touchdown. It could have been bigger. It could have been an even bigger game for him. He missed a couple ones, missed one late, back shoulder. And then Rodgers, I think he intentionally underthrew him on that last ball towards the end of the game, and Garrett Wilson kept going. He wanted him to kind of sit down and sit on that route, and I think that would have been another 20 yards for him. So you'll take it as Garrett Wilson managers out there, but a lot left to be desired there. And, I have him in 2 of my leagues. So big fan. I think there's a lot more to come there. It seems like that connection is legit. And, he just obviously passes the eye test. And Aaron Rodgers, we could be looking at an MVP season from him. He looks so comfortable and confident, and that's only going to grow throughout the season with this O-line. A couple of injuries, though, in that O-line, one big one. We'll see what happens there, but that's going to be kind of the deciding factor between the Jets being legit contenders or just another playoff team. They need to keep that O-line intact. They have to protect Rodgers. At the end of the day, if he gets injured, we've seen what they are. They're nothing. So not a whole lot to talk about the Pats. I mean, Antonio Gibson leads this team in rushing with 29 yards. That pretty much says it all. Ramondre Stevenson did nothing, 6 for 23. I believe he had a bad fumble, if I remember correctly. Demario Douglas, 7 for 69. Austin Hooper, 1 for 19. Jalen Polk, 2 for 13. I mean, just absolutely nothing. Like I said at the start, Brissett threw for 98 yards passing. You're not going to have a lot of, a lot of output on the receiving end of something like that from a quarterback. So, Pats, we knew they weren't going to, make too much noise this year. They got off to a hot start. They've now lost 2 straight. It seems like this is the Patriots team we expected. It's only a matter of time before we see Drake May. And I believe Gerard Mayo just said that this week that, we will see Drake May at some point this season. It's just a matter of when. And for the Jets, they're legit contenders. So looking ahead, they are now going to host Denver on Sunday at 1:00. That should be a great game. Denver's coming off of a big win, but I think the Jets are going to take care of business there. The over-under on that game is 38.5. To me, I would hammer the over. I know you have 2 good defenses, run-first teams, run-heavy teams, but I could see both teams getting after it, especially the Jets. I think the Jets win this one, and I think I would take the over on that game. As for the Pats, it doesn't get much easier. They are now going to San Francisco, an angry 49ers team that just absolutely blew one against the Rams. So on the road, although it felt like a home game for Niners fans. I mean, they should take care of business, but they are also very depleted. A lot of injuries for San Fran. So we'll see another over-under that is incredibly low, 39.5. San Francisco might be able to drop 30 by themselves against the Patriots. So I like the Niners in a bounce-back game. They're 10-point favorites at home. We'll see if the Pats can put up some points, but I would take the over on that one too. And then the second game on the slate for us, we got the G-Men at Cleveland taking on the Browns. Giants win this one 21-15. Daniel Jones showed up, 24 of 34, 236 yards passing. He looked much better to me. He only took 2 sacks, solid QB rating. Malik Neighbors was just his go-to guy, and why not? 12 targets for Neighbors, 8 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Wan'Dale Robinson, 7 for 61. You'll take that all day as a slot receiver. One thing to keep an eye on, Devin Singletary, 16 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown. He looked good. He looked elusive. Tyrone Tracy, 5 for 23. Keep an eye on him. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry, just a little bit better than Singletary. But to me, again, just trusting the eye test. Tyrone Tracy looks like him. I think he is going to eventually take over that starting gig, but that could be a mess in that backfield. I just think in deeper leagues, certainly you need to be rostering Tyrone Tracy Jr., but even in shallow leagues, keep an eye on him, and he could be worth a waiver claim. On the Cleveland side of things, again, I'm not a Deshaun Watson believer. Never been a fan of the guy, the person, just like all of you, but also as a football player, he makes poor decisions in the pocket, took 8 sacks. Obviously the O-line's banged up, so it's not all on him. He missed some very easy throws, one of which was a key throw that basically iced the game for the Giants. And I saw Dan Orlovsky break this down on ESPN, but ultimately Deshaun Watson had an RPO where all he had to do was decide between the slot receiver who had an in route. He was cutting. It was basically a slant route. And then he had his wide receiver going out, and it was about a 5-yard out route. And all he had to do was watch the inside cornerback to see if he would go over the top or underneath. He went over the top, and he had a layup, an easy 5-yard throw. It extended the game, extended the drive for the Browns, and he decided to go to the slant route. And so obviously that was incomplete, wrong decision there. And so, I think as long as Watson's the quarterback, this team is going to be handicapped. I don't think they're going to win many games. I think Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy and the wide receivers, Elijah Moore, they're all going to be very frustrating players to manage because, sure, you might get a game like Amari Cooper's. He put up 7 catches, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns, but he's also coming off of 2 duds, and Jerry Jeudy's coming off of a good game himself. So I think it's going to be very tough to predict in this offense. Deshaun Watson's going to be up and down as he's been his entire career with the Browns. And the run game looks to be slowing up. I mean, Jerome Ford, 10 for 37, 3.7 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done. Deonta Foreman, 2 for 5. Watson added 26 yards on the ground himself, so he showed a little something, little juice with his legs, averaging 6.5 yards per carry. But to me, this Browns team, it looks horrendous. And I'd be worried as a Browns fan and as a Browns fantasy manager, if you have any of those players, it's time to panic because this team needs to turn to Jameis Winston. We saw him, get a little bit of time in this game, but he obviously is an upgrade over Deshaun Watson. It's just a matter of time for them. And looking ahead, Cleveland is going to Las Vegas. Vegas is the favorite by 1 point in this game. I think they take care of business. I think they beat Cleveland. And I also would take the over in that game. The over-under is at 37.5. Not a lot from those two offenses, but honestly, there's nothing from that Cleveland defense that would scare me after seeing the Giants put up some points there. And I think Vegas can do the same with Devontae Adams and lean on him. And, Vegas's defense is beat up too. So I'd expect Cleveland to come out and, put some points up as well. Meanwhile, the G-Men, they are hosting Dallas on Thursday night. That is going to be an interesting game. You've got the Giants coming off of a win. They're feeling pretty good. Dallas coming off of a loss. But if you watch that game in its entirety, they played really well in the end. They almost pulled off the comeback against Baltimore. And you got to understand momentum's key here. And that's a thing in football. Just like it is in basketball, when you start to let a player get hot at the end of the game before a back-to-back, you usually see that player play well in that next game. It's the same concept in football. If a team starts to get hot late, even if they lost that game, don't necessarily just look right at the box score, because there's a lot more to take from that. And I liked what I saw from Dallas in the fourth quarter. I think they're going to come out guns blazing on Thursday night. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they put a little beat down on the G-Men in the Meadowlands. So our next game here, Green Bay at Tennessee. Green Bay put a absolute whooping on the Titans, 30-14 in this one. Malik Willis, revenge game, right? The Titans drafted him a couple of years ago, traded him away to the Packers. He comes in, takes over for Jordan Love for a couple of weeks. He looks fantastic. 13 of 19. They didn't ask him to do too much. Again, Matt LaFleur, one of the most underrated head coaches in the National Football League. You might be seeing now why there was a little bit of tension between him and Aaron Rodgers. He's such a cerebral coach. He's clearly able to put any quarterback in the right position to make them successful. And with Rodgers, he didn't necessarily need that. He needs more of a yes man. He's the very rare player coach general manager combination where Aaron Rodgers thinks he's the smartest man in the building. He honestly might be. And so Matt LaFleur, we're seeing what he can do with pretty much any quarterback. Malik Willis had a lot of flaws, and LaFleur doesn't care about that. He just focuses on the things he does well, and he emphasizes them nicely. And so we saw that in this one. Willis throws for 200 yards. Great game for him. And the whole offense, really. Emmanuel Wilson, 12 carries for 50 yards. Josh Jacobs, 14 for 43. Jaden Reed, 2 for 19 for him on the ground. To me, this is a backfield to not necessarily avoid right now, but let's see how it plays out, because Josh Jacobs clearly is not carrying the bulk of the load here. And I know this game was out of hand early, but Emmanuel Wilson just looks better. He looks like the better running back. And Marshawn Lloyd will be back in a few more weeks as well once he's off IR. So this is a backfield to keep an eye on. Again, don't want to avoid it, but we got to see how it plays out, because this could be an absolute mess. It's also a little bit of a different, game script, different game plan with Malik Willis. So with Jordan Love likely back next week, we have to wait and see how this plays out. On the receiving end, not a whole lot there. Christian Watson caught a deep ball for 37 yards. He finishes 2 for 67, leads the team in receiving. Jaden Reed, 4 for 50, and Emmanuel Wilson has that one receiving touchdown, 35 yards for him through the air. For the Titans, it was kind of a mixed bag. So Will Levis looked pretty good throughout the game, 260 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but it's the 2 INTs. He took 8 sacks, and it's just kind of, here and there. He makes the right decision the majority of the time, but a couple of bad decisions in very key moments, and they're very bad decisions, extremely costly. Bad turnovers. We've seen it for 3 straight weeks, really, with him, and beyond that over the course of last season. So still making those rookie mistakes. He has the arm talent. There's something there, but he's got to clean it up. Tony Pollard, 6 for 14. Will Levis, 3 for 12 on the ground. Tajay Spears, 2 for 7. Not a whole lot in the ground game. They did it all through the air. DeAndre Hopkins, which is the guy he needs to lean on or should lean on in this offense, 6 for 73 and a touchdown. Tajay Spears added 4 for 54. Tyler Boyd, 3 for 33. Josh Wiley, 4 for 43. Chig Okonkwo, 2 for 15. And Tony Pollard, 3 for 15. Ridley was nowhere to be found. Calvin finished 1 catch with 9 yards. Not going to get it done there. And I think this is going to be a frustrating offense to have any sort of, fantasy ownership in. Similar to the Browns, you really don't know which receiver is going to go off or when. And the run game is just non-existent right now. It looked like they had something with Pollard early in the season. They got to get back to that. This should be a run-first offense. It's just a matter of whether or not this defense can, hold teams to less than 30 points because that's not going to get it done either. Both of these teams have a decent test coming up. Let me pull it up here. The Tennessee Titans are going to Miami on Monday Night Football. Obviously, Miami's beat up, but I think we're going to see a better Dolphins team here. I would be surprised if we see the mess that we saw in Seattle on Sunday there. So expect them to clean it up. The over-under is at 36.5. So that's pretty low. I would imagine that line goes up before kickoff, but we'll have to see who's starting for Miami because right now Skylar Thompson's dealing with an injury too. And then Green Bay is going to host Minnesota in what I believe will be the game of the week on Sunday. The over-under set at 43.5 for that game. That's way too low. There's going to be a lot of offense here. The line is Green Bay 2.5. I actually think that should be a complete toss-up. I don't know who to pick in this game. If Love starts, I'll give Green Bay the slight edge at home. Minnesota, I know Sam Darnold just got dinged up in that game, but I mean, they're as hot as anyone right now, and it's not a fluke. That offense is legit. So it's a great rivalry, Minnesota, Green Bay. Love to see that back to the way it used to be. Couple of absolute powerhouses this season. So don't sleep on either of these teams. They're both very much legit. Next game on the docket here, we have the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts took care of business here, 21-16, but it wasn't pretty. Anyone that watched this game saw that Anthony Richardson is an incredible athlete. He's able to do a lot of things that most quarterbacks can't, but he also makes a lot of those same mistakes that were the reason he dropped pretty far in the draft a couple of years ago. And Caleb Williams, we're finally starting to see a glimpse of what he could be. His first touchdown of the season, he had 2 of them in this game, over 300 yards passing. So you got some positives there. He finishes with 363 yards passing, 2 TDs, 2 INTs, and 4 sacks. Richardson, 167 yards passing, not going to get it done. 0 touchdowns and 2 INTs for him, only 1 sack. But again, too many mistakes for Richardson, and Williams is starting to show us why he was drafted number 1 overall. The one thing I'll say about the Bears is this coaching staff isn't doing him any favors. It feels like they are calling a very complicated game. They need to get the ground game going. Going into this game, the Colts were the worst run defense in the NFL, and the Bears were able to get 63 yards on the ground on 28 carries, averaging 2.3 yards a carry. So the O-line is terrible. The coaching staff, I'm not going to call them terrible, but they need to help Caleb Williams out, set him up for the same kind of success that we're seeing LaFleur set up Malik Willis with, and some of these other quarterbacks that maybe aren't able to get it done elsewhere. So want to see some better play calling and, less passing. Throwing 52 times against a rush defense like the Indianapolis Colts is just inexcusable, especially in a close game. I know they made it close at the end, 13 fourth quarter points, but you could beat them on the ground. They should have given Khalil Herbert and Rashawn Johnson 20 carries each. So just in my opinion, a very poorly called game by the Bears. And the Colts come out of this one with a win. Jonathan Taylor is really the story here for the Colts. 110 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Trey Sermon added a touchdown himself. Nice run there. 2 carries for 16 yards for him. Rashawn Johnson leads the Bears in rushing, 30 yards on the ground. But it's the wide receivers that I want to talk about here. Rome Odunze, 6 for 112 and a touchdown. Cole Kmet, 10 for 97 and a touchdown. No idea where that came from, but man, you'll take that, especially with the state of the tight end position this year. That's a massive win for anyone that started Cole Kmet last week. DJ Moore, 8 for 78. You'll take that. Rashawn Johnson, 4 for 32. DeAndre Swift added 22 yards in the air. And that's pretty much it for that offense. But Rome Odunze, this is probably his coming out party. I think if you're ranking the Chicago Bears wide receivers going forward, Rome Odunze should be the number 1 receiver. Now, I know Keenan Allen's going to come back. It's going to complicate things. It's going to, make it a little bit murkier than it even is right now. But to me, Rome Odunze, again, passes the eye test. He looks good, looks the part, has that connection with Caleb. And DJ Moore is going to have his, boom games. He's going to have a couple of bust weeks, but for the most part, he's going to be right around 8 catches for 80 yards, I think. And for Indianapolis, kind of a mixed bag here. Alec Pierce has a nice long grab, 1 for 44. We're going to see a lot of that from him. He's kind of the deep threat. Michael Pittman Jr. still hasn't arrived this year. 4 for 36 for him. To me, again, he's not a great fit for this offense. I want to see what happens when they get Josh Downs more involved. Downs got 3 catches for 22 yards in this one. I think he's going to be a PPR machine going forward. So keep an eye on this team, but real disappointing. Anthony Richardson, such a hot start to the season, but the one thing I've been saying about Richardson is, he's not the most accurate quarterback, and that was the one, knock on him coming out of college, and he's made some poor decisions. So hopefully he cleans that up. Indianapolis is hosting Pittsburgh this week. Good luck to them. Pittsburgh is as hot as anyone right now. That defense is electric. That's going to be a great atmosphere because both teams are going to want this one. Indianapolis needs this. You cannot go 1-3 in that division. So we'll see what happens there. Chicago is going to host the LA Rams. That's another great game. The Rams are depleted. The Chicago Bears can really take advantage of that secondary. They can also run the ball again. I think they need to run to set up the pass with Caleb. They need to get Caleb out of the pocket. There really is no pocket. That O-line is probably the worst in the NFL. Got to protect this kid. Don't let his confidence go away the same way that Carolina did with Bryce Young. And for Indianapolis, I mean, the key there is going to be protecting Richardson. Can you keep TJ Watt out of his face? And if you're Indianapolis, they got the run game going. Keep feeding Jonathan Taylor the ball. You can run on Pittsburgh. They're not they're not necessarily beatable on the ground, but certainly more so than through the air. And I think that's exactly what to expect in Indianapolis. I think a run heavy week is coming, and over under set at 40.5. I think that's too high. I think this game is going to be very low scoring. Pittsburgh's favored 1.5 points in Indianapolis. I feel like that should probably be the other way around, even coming off of a loss, but we shall see. That'll be a great game. Next up for us, we have the Houston Texans taking on the Minnesota Vikings. So this is what I thought was going to be the game of the week. It got out of hand early. Minnesota jumped ahead to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter and really never looked back. That was the score at halftime. Came out of the second half, put 7 more on the board, 13 in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, 34-7. We have an absolute blowout in Minneapolis. So the game that none of us, or outcome, I should say, that none of us saw coming. Sam Darnold, again, showing why he should be in that MVP conversation. 17 of 28, 181 yards passing, but 4 touchdowns. He did take 4 sacks. Again, that O-line has some holes. That's the one area where I feel like the Vikings are a bit susceptible. So we'll see if they kind of shore that up. But, and again, Darnold left this one with a knee injury, I believe it was. He did come back. He finished the game. So no real concerns. But again, something to monitor there. For Houston, CJ Stroud looked beatable in this one. I think the Vikings kind of cracked the code. They got a lot of pressure on him. 4 sacks, 2 INTs. He threw for 215 yards and a touchdown, but he just did not look comfortable the entire day. And sometimes that's what happens with younger quarterbacks trying to play, from behind early and comeback mode pretty much right out of the gates. So hate to see that. Cam Akers, if you have him, hold on to him. I'm not so sure Joe Mixon comes back next week. I still think we're at least a week, maybe 2 weeks away from Mixon's return. And Cam Akers is clearly the guy in that backfield while Mixon's out. And he looked fine. 21 yards on the ground. That's not going to get it done, but tough to run when you're, facing a 14-point deficit basically off the kickoff. But he did add a touchdown and 8 yards in the air. Nice touchdown catch for Cam. So again, he's borderline RB2, RB1 territory when Mixon misses time. And I expect the Texans to bounce back in a big way next week. Wide receivers, you got a lot of production from Steph Diggs, 10 for 94. Nico Collins adds 4 for 86. Tank Dell, 5 for 62. Again, they're spreading it around. All 3 guys are playable in fantasy. Diggs and Nico seem like locks for wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 upside. I mean, Nico Collins, he's really coming close to that set it and forget it top 5 wide receiver territory. I think he's already there, to be honest. The only wide receivers I think I would take over him in fantasy football right now: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, say 4 or 5 guys ahead of Nico right now in fantasy drafts, but not many. And 4 for 86, that's a down game for him. Stroud missed him on a couple of opportunities there early in this game. So this could have been a much bigger game for Nico. They tried to get him a touchdown late. They actually went to him 4 straight times in the end zone on that last drive when Davis Mills was in. So they really want to get this guy, pad his stats a little bit, which is good for us fantasy managers. So we like that. Minnesota side of things, Aaron Jones, 100 yards on the ground. Love to see that. Ty Chandler, not much of a factor, 13 for him. Justin Jefferson, 6 for 81, a touchdown. Jones adds another touchdown in the air, 5 for 46 for him. Jalen Naylor, this guy continues to produce 3 for 31 and a touchdown. I think Naylor needs to be owned in all leagues. But to me, he's a wide receiver 3 with basically wide receiver 1 upside. If any of these top wide receivers for the Vikings are injured, Jefferson has had a bit of an injury history. So if he goes down, Naylor would be able to fill right in for him as the team's wide receiver 1. So definitely keep an eye on that. And then, again, Sam Darnold putting together an MVP type season. Love what they're doing. Kevin O'Connell is doing what the Chicago Bears should be doing for Caleb Williams. I mean, to me, they're simplifying things, right? Short passing, run to set up the pass, play action passing, getting Darnold out of the pocket. The protection's been great. And, they're scheming guys open. Justin Jefferson, doesn't matter if you triple team him, they'll find a way to get him the ball. A lot of pre-snap motion. So Kevin O'Connell, again, McVay coaching trades, clear as day. These guys, they know what they're doing over there. So love to see that. Looking ahead to next week, again, Minnesota going to Green Bay. This is going to be a really tough challenge for them. Tough encore too, hosting the Texans, putting together a game like that. It's going to be tough to bounce back from that and bring the energy here in Green Bay on the road. So that's going to be a great game. I got my eyes glued to that one. I think Green Bay wins that game, but that'll be fantastic. And then for Houston, they are going to host Jacksonville. The Jaguars are completely dead. I think Houston annihilates them. I think they blow them out. The over-under set at 45.5. I do think this is high scoring, mostly because I think Houston gets out to an early lead and milks this one. Houston's 7-point favorites. I think that's about 3, maybe 4 points too low. They should be 10-point favorites. They might be come Sunday. We'll see. Jacksonville is, dead man walking right now. It doesn't look good in Jacksonville. I'm even hearing that Bill Belichick might be the next coach there. And, we're 3 games into the season. So Doug Peterson could be the first head coach to lose his job this year. We'll see if they can turn things around. Next game for us is Philadelphia at New Orleans. We all thought this was going to be a high scoring game. It was not. 15-12. Eagles beat the Saints in this one. Not pretty, but they got it done. Jalen Hurts, 311 yards passing, 1 INT, took 4 sacks. But the story for the Birds here, Saquon Barkley, 147 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 1 long one, 65-yarder. He looks like a league winner. He should be, if he's not the overall RB1 at this point, he should be in the conversation for it. Just so explosive, good offense. Passing game hasn't really gotten it going yet, so they're going to lean on Barkley until Hurts can figure that out. But Dallas Goedert put up 10 for 170 in this one. That kind of came out of nowhere. Him and Cole Kmet, both to me, they just brought it. And again, A.J. Brown, he's missing time. We all assume that means more work for Devontae Smith. It certainly does, but it's also a collective effort, and a lot of that comes from the tight end position. So Dallas Goedert, he has his day. Smith puts up 7 for 79. Paris Campbell, 2 for 13. The rest of the team didn't do too much. I do think we're going to see more and more of Jahan Dotson as the season goes along, so keep an eye on him. And then for the Saints, I mean, Alvin Kamara was not efficient, averaged 3 yards a carry, but 87 yards for him on the ground, 40 yards in the air on 3 catches. You'll take it. He's, not going to put up 40 fantasy points every week, obviously. But Derek Carr, concerning, 142 yards passing, not very efficient, 14 of 25, 1 touchdown, 1 bad interception. Also took a sack in this one. Better days ahead for the Saints. They've obviously had a strong start to the season. Philadelphia's not a cakewalk on defense either. Excuse me. But, this, you want to see more. And I think Derek Carr is going to go as far as Rashid Shaheed takes him. This team is going to air it out. They're going to take some deep shots. They did that. 5 targets for Shaheed, but not 1 catch. That's what happens when you have a deep target like that. Chris Olave's the guy in this one. 6 catches, 86 yards and a touchdown. Love to see that. But nothing from the rest of the group. No, there really was no supporting cast. It was all Kamara and all Chris Olave in this one. So they're going to need more. They're going to need the deep shots to Shaheed. Better days ahead for New Orleans and for Philadelphia. They squeaked this one out, but I feel like the hot seat needs to be on for Nick Sirianni. I mean, they're 2-1. They've escaped a couple of close ones. But to me, this team has way too much talent. Even with AJ Brown injured, they have way too much talent to be, playing in all these nail biters. And so the Philadelphia Eagles are now, let's see, where are they going? They are going to Tampa Bay, 1:00 on Sunday. That's an interesting game to me. I actually like Tampa on this one. I know Philly's favored. They're getting 2.5 points on the road. The over-under set at 44.5. This is, classic playoff rematch. I feel like Tampa could come out strong in this one. Obviously, they got beat up by Denver last week. Throw that out the window. Surtain absolutely blanketed Mike Evans, shut him down. Chris Godwin had a good game, but the rest of that offense couldn't really get it going. This coaching staff is going to turn to Bucky Irving. It's going to start this week. It's going to be the Bucky Irving show. Pick him up off the waivers. Do not put him on your bench. Start him. Put him in starting lineups. This guy's a stud. Passes the eye test. Clearly better, more elusive, quicker than Rachaad White. In Philadelphia, you can beat them on the ground. New Orleans didn't really take advantage of that. They had a rough day. But Philadelphia was also selling out for the run. They didn't think that Carr could beat them through the air. I think Baker's going to make them pay in this one. I think he's going to connect on a few deep shots. I think Jalen McMillan's going to have a nice game in this one, and Chris Godwin as well. But Bucky Irving, give this guy 20 carries, see what he can do with it. That'll be a really fun game. And for the Saints, they go to Atlanta now, divisional game. Hopefully they get that sour taste out of their mouth. And, I think this offense can get back on track against Atlanta. Atlanta's going to really want this one too. That's another team that's had a couple of close games. But, to me, I'm staying away from the line on that one. Atlanta, 1.5 point favorite. I think that's probably fair. I think this is a pick'em game. Over under at 42.5. I think that's too low. I think we're going to see both offenses open it back up in this one. So that should be a very good game as well. 1:00 on Sunday. Let's jump to the next one. LA Chargers going to Pittsburgh. The Steelers take care of business, 20-10 in this one. To me, the key takeaway is Justin Fields is the guy. I mean, I know that every week we have to wake up and read about, is it Fields or Russell Wilson based on what the reporters are asking Tomlin, but it really isn't even a question anymore. It's Justin Fields' job. At some point, people will stop asking. He's the starter for the season. He just looked really good. He had 1 INT, couple of sacks in this one, but for the most part, he was spot on. And that's a tough Chargers defense there that teams have not found a lot of success against. Fields throws for 245 yards and has a touchdown. He also adds 6 yards and a touchdown on the ground. The running back situation, keep an eye on this one. Najee Harris gets dinged up. He's in a sling. They said he's going to play this week. He does typically play through injuries, so I believe the coaching staff on this one. But Cordero Patterson, 4 for 33 in this one on the ground. He would be the immediate replacement for Najee Harris, with Jalen Warren also out dealing with an MCL injury. So to me, worth a waiver wire claim, worth an ad this week, but it could be all for nothing, because I do think that Najee is going to play through his injury, and he always does, and he'll probably be pretty effective. In the air, Calvin Austin was the guy getting it done this week. 4 for 95 and a touchdown. Don't get discouraged if you have George Pickens. Only 5 for 57 in this one, but 7 targets. He's top 5 in the league in air yard share. It's coming. Fields has missed him on a couple of deep balls. There have also been a couple of pass interference penalties on plays that could have resulted in touchdowns for Pickens. So the big week is coming as soon as next week. Just be patient with him. Keep plugging him in your lineup. Calvin Austin's not going to put up 95 and a touchdown every week. Rest of this team, not much. Fryermuth puts up 4 for 33. Najee, 5 for 16 in the air. Um, but again, the key here, Steelers, they light up a defense that's been tough. The Chargers have a lot of difficulty against a good defense in the Steelers in this one. Herbert only 125 yards in the air, 1 touchdown, 2 sacks. Heineke comes in because Herbert entered the game with an ankle injury. He leaves the game with an ankle injury. That's why you don't play quarterbacks through high ankle sprains. That typically requires at least 2 weeks of rest. So I think Harbaugh, in retrospect, in hindsight, he probably should have sat Herbert in this one. I think Herbert was pushing to play. And it's one of those situations where you got to protect the player from themselves. Hopefully he didn't do too much damage to this, but I would expect Herbert to sit at least next week and potentially multi-weeks. J.K. Dobbins, first dud game of the year. We all saw this one coming. The Steelers are not a team that you can easily run against. I know I just said before that it's an opportunity next week for their opponent, but J.K. 15 for 44, Gus Edwards 3 for 9. They couldn't get it done on the ground. They couldn't get it done on the air. Quentin Johnston's the leading receiver, 2 for 44 and a touchdown. Ladd McConkey, 3 for 44. Not a whole lot there. So you like what you see out of Pittsburgh. This team is legit. It's not fluky at all. And with the Chargers, we'll see. Hot start, but they paid the price there. That was a couple of brutal injuries in that game. So Pittsburgh, again, going to Indianapolis next week. That's going to be a tough game. Indianapolis wants to get right. They have coming off a win, but a lot to improve upon there in Indianapolis. Pittsburgh seems like everything is going their way. That's going to be a great game, tough matchup for them. And the Chargers, again, they're beat up. They get to go back home, but guess who they're facing? The Kansas City Chiefs. So KC's angry. They keep winning games, but they are not playing great football. This team can play better. I think they have a great game. I think we see a coming out party again for Xavier Worthy. We haven't really heard from him since week 1. This is a matchup where he can be a huge part of the game plan for Kansas City, and I expect that to be the case. Over-under is way too low here, 39.5. I know Los Angeles is not going to be putting up a lot of points, but Kansas City could drop 40 by themselves in this one. So love that game. I would take the over, and Kansas City's favored by 8.5 points. I think that's pretty appropriate. Next up here, we have the Broncos going to Tampa Bay. I mean, I talked about the running back that is on my radar right now, Bucky Irving. I talked about him earlier. I don't need to harp on it. Add this guy, start this guy, play this guy. He's electric. 9 for 70, rookie from Oregon, passes the eye test. He's elusive. He's quick. He's jittery. Breaks a lot of tackles. He's a smaller back, but he runs like a bruiser. I think that he is going to be a fantasy league winner. We toss that term around way too much, but this guy is legit, and he's got great hands, really good receiving back. The argument for Rachaad White is that he's a great receiver. He makes up for that in the passing game. Well, what happens if you give Bucky Irving the featured running back role and he leaves that game with 6 catches for 50 yards? You're going to have a tough time playing Rachaad White over him on third down, won't you? So I think keep an eye on this. But for this week, Tampa Bay struggled. They couldn't get anything going in the air. Again, a lot of that was Patrick Surtain was draped all over Mike Evans. Baker was trying to get him the rock and just couldn't. So Baker finishes with 163 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, 7 sacks. You got to keep him upright. That O-line did him no favors. He also held on to the ball a little bit too long. So I want to see Baker get out of his hands a little quicker, quick passes, and again, run the ball. You got to run the ball. The Broncos, you can beat them on the ground. I didn't really agree with the play calling in this one, but give the credit where it's due. The Broncos played great. Bo Nix, 25 of 36, 216 yards passing. He added 47 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Again, if you have him in fantasy, that's what you're looking for. We all knew this guy was a dual threat. He's a much better athlete than we give him credit for. Great game for him. The running back situation in Denver is really interesting. Javonte Williams, again, for the 3rd straight week, looked terrible. 5 for 12, averaging 2 yards a carry, just over 2. Jaleel McLaughlin, 5 for 7. He saves his day with a touchdown. But Tyler Batty, or is it Beatty? It's either Batty or Beatty. I'm not sure. But 9 carries, 70 yards. This guy wasn't even on fantasy radars going into this game. He certainly should be now. I think this guy's going to get the bulk of the carries going forward. He looked great. This offense looked great. So maybe this is what Sean Payton was kind of envisioning when he put this team together. But I mean, it's so over for Javonte Williams. If you have him, try to trade him, see what you can get. If you can't get anything, I have no problem dropping this guy. I do think he's a trade candidate. I think a team like the Cowboys, I think a team like even Philadelphia, trying to find running back depth behind Saquon, could make an offer to try to get Javonte Williams. But to me, he's droppable. He's not. I don't think Sean Payton's not the type of coach to give people a second chance, especially veterans who, he saw what he could do last year. He wasn't impressive. So um, I think this is Tyler Beatty's job to lose now, and we'll have to keep an eye on the rest of that backfield. But good things ahead. Cortland Sutton 7 for 68 through the air. Little Jordan Humphrey 6 for 37. Josh Reynolds 2 for 36. Not a whole lot from that passing game aside from Sutton. And for Tampa Bay, again, Chris Godwin 3 straight weeks of wide receiver 1 numbers, 6 for 53 and a touchdown. Cade Otton 7 for 47. Rashad White adds 5 for 18. And again, Mike Evans 2 for 17. Patrick Surtain, when he's on the wide receiver, you cannot play that wide receiver. So if you own Mike Evans, if you manage Mike Evans in your fantasy roster, he should not have been in your starting lineup, just as Garrett Wilson should not be in your starting lineup next week. A little bit different. You have Aaron Rodgers. They move Garrett Wilson around a lot. Surtain will, play off. I actually think one or maybe both of Mike Evans' catches came against a different cornerback. I think Surtain was actually off him a few times. But my point there is, if your star wide receiver is going up against the Broncos and that cornerback, Patrick Surtain, is going to be shadowing the wide receiver, you can't play him. Looking ahead for these two teams, Tampa Bay is hosting Philadelphia. Again, that should be a good game. I think that's a get-right game for Tampa Bay, high scoring. I think there's going to be a lot of offense, so love that game for them. Denver going to the Jets. It's kind of a tough follow-up. They're finally getting some momentum, and then boom, you have to face the toughest defense at home, feeling good, coming off of a monster win over the Pats. To me, I wouldn't feel great about that. So we'll see if Bo Nix can stick to those short intermediate passes, and if they can get the ground game going against the Jets, that is the formula to beat them. You slow the pace, keep Rodgers off the field, and force 8, 9, 10 guys into the box, and maybe you can get Sutton loose for a deep one. Next up here, we have Carolina and the Raiders. This, of course, was the Andy Dalton game. They benched Bryce Young. Andy Dalton comes in. Offense hasn't gotten anything going, and Dalton passes for 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, if you were wondering, was the problem the Panthers or Bryce Young? It was clearly Bryce Young. Now, the reason it was the Bryce Young that was the problem is that the Panthers mishandled that entire situation from the moment they drafted him. So you got to build around a quarterback like that. And again, like Matt LaFleur, you have to have a coaching staff and play calling that plays to the advantages of the quarterback. And so I don't think they were doing that. They turned to Andy Dalton, veteran. He knows what to do. Get Adam Thielen the ball, get Deontay Johnson the ball, give Chuba Hubbard 20 carries. The rest is history. So Panthers win this one. 36-22 is closer than the box score leads you to believe. But Andy Dalton, 26 of 37, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was fantastic. Chuba Hubbard, 114 yards on the ground. Miles Sanders had a rushing touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 8 for 122 and a touchdown. That's why you drafted him as your wide receiver 1. Chuba Hubbard, 5 for 55 and a touchdown. If he keeps playing like this, it's going to be tough for Jonathan Brooks to come in and immediately take over that lead running back role. Something to monitor. If you have Jonathan Brooks, just put a pin in this. I think this could be a committee backfield. So we'll have to see. If Chuba Hubbard strings together 2 or 3 more good games, this is going to be a messy situation in Carolina. So Adam Thielen leaves with an injury in this one, but he had 3 for 40 and a touchdown. As long as Andy Dalton's the quarterback and Adam Thielen's healthy, love that connection. I think Thielen is a plug-and-play wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. And for Vegas, Gardner Minshew looked terrible. 18 of 28, 214 yards. He did have a touchdown, but he had an INT. He had 2 sacks, poor decisions. Aiden O'Connell comes in 9 for 12, 82 yards and a touchdown. He looked much more comfortable. I was always surprised with the decision to start Minshew this year. It felt like they should have it felt like Aiden O'Connell earned the chance to come back out and prove what he can do, especially since he has draft capital with his team. So don't be surprised if they turn to Aiden O'Connell if Gardner Minshew has a tough start to next week's game. Zamir White, 10 for 34. It's very over for him. If there was a matchup to start White, it was this one. Alexander Madison, another touchdown, 3 for 7. Minshew adds 14 yards in the ground. Trey Tucker's the big guy in the wide receiver room there, 7 for 96 and a touchdown. Jacoby Myers, 7 for 62 and a touchdown. Keep your eyes on Jacoby Myers. I think he could be a trade target as we get a little bit closer to the deadline here. Brock Bowers, nothing, 3 for 41. And Devontae Adams, 4 for 40. He had 9 targets, but 3 or 4 of them were basically uncatchable. So just hate to see it. It's one of those games where if you're the coaching staff of the Raiders, you kind of have to just erase the film and start over next week because it was ugly. Antonio Pierce even came out and said something along the lines of, we had some players out there that were making business decisions. So we ourselves are going to have to start making some business decisions. So yikes, if you're one of those players and they've got you on film, taking a play off or not making a tackle, you're going to have a rough week of practice there in Vegas. Good news for them though. They are hosting the Cleveland Browns. So get your brown paper bags ready. This is going to be an ugly game. Over-unders at 37.5. That might be 5 points too many. I think this is going to be terrible offense, terrible football, 2 bad teams. Vegas is the 1-point favorite. I'd probably give that edge to Cleveland at this point. But yikes. That's going to be really, really ugly to watch. And for Carolina, now they get to host Cincinnati. Cincinnati coming off of another tough loss. I think Carolina keeps it going. I think this is a chance to bury the Bengals. Andy Dalton looks comfortable. He looks good. He may not throw 3 touchdowns again against Cincinnati, but I mean, Jaden Daniels looked like a stud. So if a rookie looks that good against a defense, I'm fine starting a veteran. So if you have Andy Dalton, fire him up as a QB1. And again, the spread there, Cincinnati -4.5 on the road. I'll take Carolina +4.5 all day. Over-unders at 48.5. That's way too high. I don't think there's going to be that many points in that game. The next game up here, we have the Dolphins at Seattle. I don't think any of us thought it was going to be a close game, but this was, just brutal. 24-3. Cincinnati gets out to a 17-3 lead right out of the gates in the first quarter. There really wasn't much more until the fourth. Seattle puts another touchdown on the board late in this game to win 24-3. But for Miami, it's just no identity without Tua. They're clearly lost. They need an accurate quarterback. They need a system quarterback. They don't have that. So don't be surprised if we see Tua sooner than later. And if we don't see Tua, don't be surprised if they go out and get someone. Too much talent. They are maybe not in a Super Bowl window, but they are a playoff team if they can get the right quarterback there. They're not going to waste this season away. It's too long. So 3 games in, clearly they're not going to have someone coming in to save the day next week, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go after someone. And keep an eye on Bryce Young. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a trade offer to the Panthers for that one. But Geno Smith, 26 of 34, 289 yards passing, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. He wasn't perfect. He got the job done. You always like to see more than that. But Zach Charbonnet, 18 for 91, 2 touchdowns. He looked great. I don't think we're going to see Kenneth Walker. We might next week just because they have a Monday night game, so an extra day to rest. But to me, Charbonnet looks good. Even if we see Walker, I think it'll be in a bit of a committee role. So I'd be nervous starting him next week. DK was the answer in this one. 4 for 104 and a touchdown. Noah Fant, 6 for 60. Tyler Lockett, 5 for 46. What happened to JSN? Jackson Smith and Jigba, 3 for 39. This was such a smash matchup for me. The Dolphins have one of the worst slot corners in the league. They're susceptible to slot wide receivers. It was a match made in heaven. Other teams had been targeting slot wide receivers 17-10 going into this game against the Dolphins. And the Seahawks obviously just chose to lean on the ground game and a couple of deep balls to DK and got the job done. So can't blame them. It seemed to work. Devon Achane, 11 for 30 on the ground, 3 for 28 in the air. As long as Skylar Thompson or Tim Boyle is starting for this team, you got to start Achane just because of the upside. He can, win you a week in 1 or 2 plays. So you got to play him, but I'm nervous, and I'm nervous about this whole offense. I mean, Tyreek 3 for 40, Jalen Waddle 4 for 26. It's ugly in Miami, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. Miami now hosting Tennessee on Monday Night Football. They're the favorite. I don't know how. That team looks so bad. I would actually take Tennessee at +1 on the road. And the over-under set at 36.5 for that game. That's pretty appropriate. Seattle, meanwhile, goes to Detroit. That's going to be probably their toughest test of the season. That's going to be a hostile environment in Detroit. That's a team that is coming off of a win, but not a great game, not a great performance. A lot left to be desired there. So I think Detroit puts it on Seattle. I think there's a lot of points in that game. The over/under set at 47.5. I think that's 3 points too low. I would take the over. Detroit's 3.5-point favorite. If Kenneth Walker plays, I think that's fair. If he's out, I would take Detroit at 5-point favorites at this point, to be honest. So that's how I feel about that game. And then jumping ahead, Ravens Cowboys. This was shaping up to be one of the best games of the week. The Ravens came out strong in this one. They put 14 points on the board. They go up 21-6 at halftime. Come out at halftime, score a quick touchdown, and then boom, the Cowboys just have an avalanche of offense. 19 points in the fourth quarter. They make this one way too close. Convert on an onside kick. They had a shot late in this one, but it's a little bit too little, too late, I guess, from the Cowboys. Key takeaway for the Ravens: it's the Derrick Henry show. I joked about it when Harbaugh said they didn't bring Henry in to get 30 carries. Yeah, what about 25? What about 26? What about 27? To me, Derrick Henry is a bell cow. He should be getting 20 plus carries every game. The way this offense is designed is run to set up the pass, get an early lead, lean back on the run. That's what they did in this one. To me, they kind of went away from the run a little bit in the second half, and that's what allowed the Cowboys to kind of sneak back into this one. But Lamar was okay. He didn't really have to do too much. 12 of 15, 182 yards passing, 1 touchdown. But again, Henry was the man, 151 yards, 2 TDs. Lamar, 87 and 1 on the ground. Justice Hill, 5 for 33. Again, another efficient running day for him. Through the air, Nelson Aguilar, 56 yards. Rashad Bateman, 28 and a touchdown. And Derrick Henry, he had 1 nice catch for 23 yards there too. So love to see that as fantasy managers. And for Dallas, I mean, the box score doesn't really tell the whole story. Dak, 379 yards, 9 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He did take 3 sacks, but again, momentum going into this next game against the Giants. It's going to be there for the Cowboys. They should have success against the G-men. But again, shocking. A lot of that was coaching, bad play calling. It seemed like they were slow out of the gates against this team, and they got punched in the mouth hard. So I'm going to give them a pass, and I don't think we need to read too much in this box score. But man, it's ugly, and they need running backs. Rico Dowdle, 8 carries for 32 yards is your leading runner. Like, how does that happen? And this team had a legitimate chance to sign Derrick Henry in the offseason, and they didn't. And so it was right in their face, in front of their hometown fans, in front of their hometown crowd. That's what you could have had. That could have been yours. Imagine Derrick Henry with this Cowboys offense. It would have been electric. But obviously the Ravens got that one, and they're feeling pretty good about themselves. So Dallas, again, going to the Giants on Thursday Night Football. I think they take care of business. They're 6-point favorites on the road. It's a little harsh for, a team coming off of a win like the Giants are against Cleveland. But again, I think that's fair. Dallas momentum. They're going to put up some points in this one. The over-under's at 44.5. I think that might be a little bit too low. Give me the Cowboys in that game. And Baltimore, coming off a big win, statement game. Now show us. Now they're hosting the Buffalo Bills, who are coming off of an absolute beatdown against Jacksonville, one of the best games the Bills have played all season. And now they're going to Baltimore. This is a great rivalry. Sunday Night Football. I mean, it's as good as it gets. That could be the game of the week. Baltimore's 2.5-point favorites. No chance am I taking that. Buffalo looks legit. I'll take Buffalo plus 2.5 all day. I'll take Buffalo at the money line. 46.5 is the over-under. give me the over. Just for I want to see fireworks. I want to see a lot of offense. I think this is going to be a ground game. I think both teams are going to lean on the ground, but Baltimore is beatable through the air, as we saw with Dallas in the fourth quarter there. So if you have Josh Allen, just sit back and enjoy your beverage, because he's gonna put up some big numbers against Baltimore in Week 4. And next up here, we have the surprise of the week. The LA Rams take care of business at home against the San Francisco 49ers. This one did not feel like a home game for the Rams. There were plenty more Niners fans there at SoFi in LA, but man, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, this team just continues to find a way to get it done. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, missing their entire offensive line, some key guys on the defensive side of the ball, and they still come out of this one with a win. Let's not act like the Niners were coming in with a clean bill of health either. I mean, a lot of injuries on their side of the ball. Obviously, CMC, well documented there. He's out. George Kittle misses this one. Deebo Samuel misses this game. Trent Williams, they have a lot of injuries themselves, so no excuses for either team, but just a great performance and a great game. The Rams put up 13 in the fourth quarter to come back and win 27-14. The Niners really should have won this game. There was a bad drop pass by Ronnie Bell late in this game that could have pretty much iced it. So, excuse me, my throat's a mess. So you like to see this, two good teams. They both should be there in the end. I would expect both teams to be playoff contenders, but at the same time, they got to get healthy. These teams are dinged up, and it's going to cost them. So let's just quickly go through the stats. Brock Purdy, for anyone that says that he can't do it, he's a system quarterback. He's doing it without two of the best players in football. Deebo Samuel, CMC, both out. Purdy puts up 292 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, only 1 sack. He was excellent. Jordan Mason, 19 of 77. You'll take it, but not his best game. Purdy adds 41 yards on the ground. Again, better athlete than people give him credit for. And then Juwan Jennings, 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns. A lot of people, myself included, thought Brandon Ayuk was going to have a monster game, maybe his coming out party for the 2024 season. He did not. 5 for 48. It was Juwan Jennings. The guy's an animal. He deserves as much waiver attention as anyone out there. This is not a fluke. This guy is legit. The Niners love him. They went out of their way to re-sign him, give him a new contract in the offseason. He is a legit wide receiver 1 that is serving as the team's wide receiver 2. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford, another classic Stafford game, 16 of 25, 220 yards passing, a touchdown. He did take 3 sacks. I thought he was going to get sacked 10 times in this game. So bravo to that O-line. They looked much better than I thought they would. Bravo to Sean McVay, calling a great game, leaning on the run, 24 carries for Kyren Williams, 89 yards. Not efficient, 3.7 yards per carry, but gets in the end zone twice on the ground, once in the air. Again, bravo if you drafted Kyren Williams. Sell now. Sell now. Don't wait. He's not efficient. He's putting up numbers. It's a good offense. It's not a great offense. It's only a matter of time before Blake Corum is introduced. It's also only a matter of time before Kyren Williams gets hurt. He is injury prone. I don't wish any injuries upon anyone, but he will get hurt. So sell high. Trade him while you can. Jordan Whittington, disappointing game for him, 3 for 28. But again, the game plan for the Rams right out of the gates was lean on the run. And kudos to them for not bailing on it. They got down early, 14-0, stuck to the game plan. Got 7 in the second quarter, made it tighter in the third. And then, the rest is history in the fourth. So good job by them. Tutu Atwell, 4 for 93. Demarcus Robinson, 1 for 32. We don't really need to talk about the rest of the pass catchers over there. Not a whole lot to discuss. San Francisco is going to host New England this week. 10-point favorites at home. 39.5 is the over-under. Meanwhile, the Rams are going to Chicago. I don't like that game. I think Chicago, they're going to be angry. I think they beat the Rams at home, 2.5-point favorites. Give me Chicago minus 2.5 and give me the under at 40.5. I think this is an ugly game. Slug it out, old school, run heavy. I love the Chicago Bears defense and special teams in fantasy this week. So if you have them, fire them up. I think they're going to be very good. Couple more games. Lions, Cardinals. Lions squeaked this one out, 20-13. I think we all thought this was going to be a high-scoring game, and it was not. Um, part of that is because of the defense. I mean, excuse me, the Arizona Cardinals are a fantastic defense. Like it's not a fluke. It's not, it's legit. They have a really good defense. We need to start treating them as such. And we know what Detroit is like on defense. They're ferocious. So um, in hindsight, we probably should have thought twice about that over under total for this week. But Jared Goff looked okay, not great. 18 of 23, 199 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. David Montgomery, 105 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 83 yards on 16 carries, more efficient. But again, Montgomery gets the touchdown. This backfield, it's a committee, but they're supporting 2 legit RB1s. So you love to see that. What you don't love to see, Jamison Williams, -7 yards rushing. I mean, 1 catch for 9 yards, just an awful game for him. I'm not sure if the Cardinals kind of zeroed in on him and they decided that they were going to take that away, or if Jameson just didn't bring it. But again, one thing we've seen with the Cardinals, they will focus on your number one. They'll focus on the key part of your offense or what's been working for you lately, kind of like the Patriots used to do in the Belichick era, and they'll take it away and they'll say, beat us with someone else. Prove that you can beat us with Sam Laporta. Prove that you can beat us with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, with Detroit, that's not necessarily smart because they have so many people that can beat you. Clearly, Laporta puts up 2 for 36, a bit of a dud. He leaves on a cart, I believe, in this one with an injury. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7 for 75 and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, a touchdown in the air. Again, this team has too many weapons. They can beat you in too many ways. They didn't play a great game, and they still beat a really good Arizona Cardinals team, 20-13 on the road. Kyler Murray, not his best game, 21 of 34, 207 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. He only took 1 sack, but he just didn't look comfortable back there. And I think Detroit's secondary played an outstanding game. Great coverage all around. Running the ball, Kyler had 45 yards, but that was pretty much it. James Conner, 9 for 17. Trey Benson, 2 for 8. Amari DiMarcardo, 2 for 7. So again, this should have been a run-heavy game script. Arizona tied the game. It was 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. They should have been leaning on the run, on the ground game after that, and they didn't. So they paid for it. Marvin Harrison Jr., another touchdown. Love to see that. Michael Wilson, 8 for 64. Greg Dortch, 3 for 35. Thought he was going to show out a little bit. Trey McBride, 3 for 25. He left this one with a concussion, so keep an eye on that. He may miss next week, so we got to follow him through that concussion protocol, and hopefully he gets right. For Arizona, they are now going to host the red-hot Washington Commanders. That's going to be a great game. The line right now is Arizona -3, which I think is fair. I would not touch that. Over under 50.5. That's a little high for me, but again, I think we're going to see a lot of offense. 2 dual threat quarterbacks. We're seeing some great play calling from both sides. I think too with Arizona, they need to lean on James Conner. Go back to the ground game. That's what kind of got you here, and for Washington, do more of the same. And for the Lions, I mentioned it before. They are at home against Seattle. I like the Lions in this one. This is going to be a tough game for Seattle, but a lot of offense here. Over under set at 47.5. That'll be a really fun game. So we got to wait and see if Kenneth Walker's healthy. That kind of changes things, but I like Detroit to cover at 3.5. And if Walker misses, I think they cover at 5, at least -5. Next game here. Chiefs at Atlanta. Chiefs squeak this one out. They get a couple of favorable calls from the refs once again, but they deserve to win this game. The Falcons played better, but again, I think there's better days ahead for Atlanta, so they shouldn't get too down here. They took the defending champs right to the brink and almost beat them. Probably should have beat them. Patrick Mahomes, 26 of 39, 217 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Carson Steele was the guy in the backfield. I thought it was going to be Samaje Perine. I was dead wrong. It was Carson Steele, 17 for 72. He looked better. He looked good. Samaje Perine, 6 for 25. Looked a little slow. Again, both of them averaged 4.2 yards per carry. So who knows if Perine gets majority of the work there. But don't forget, Kareem Hunt's coming. He's going to play next week. This is going to be a messy backfield. But I think they're going to continue to give Carson Steele some work. So if you have him, good job. Keep him on your bench. I wouldn't play him yet, but better days ahead for this offense. Xavier Worthy, still not much. 3 for 13 on the ground. 2 for 17 in the air. They really need to use him more. We saw we could do week 1, came out of the gates with a couple of touchdowns, one through the air, one on the ground. They got to get him more involved. But Rashee Rice, 12 for 110 and a touchdown. This guy's a league winner. A lot of people draft him in the 3rd, 4th. I saw even 5th round late in drafts. He's if we're drafting again today, he is a 1st round pick, and it's tough to argue not taking him top 6, right? So great job by all those fantasy managers that got Rashee Rice on your roster. Travis Kelce looks like dust, 4 for 30. Andy Reid said that teams are taking him away. He just doesn't look right to me. So a name to keep an eye on, Jared Wiley, the backup tight end over there. I know Noah Gray is still there, but Wiley is a freak of nature. He's a rookie. He's basically a wide receiver in a tight end's body. So keep an eye on that. If Kelce gets injured, Wiley becomes relevant. But even if Kelce keeps playing like this, who knows if they start to give Wiley some more snaps. Kirk Cousins, he looked better. 20 of 29, 230 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, 2 sacks. But they couldn't really get it going on the ground. Bijan, 16 of 31. He saved his day with a touchdown, but not what you want to see from an efficiency standpoint. Tyler Algier added 7 for 32. Ray McLeod, 1 for 20. But Drake London showed out again, 6 for 67 and a touchdown. Could have been much more on 9 targets. Darnell Mooney, again, having a nice fantasy day, 8 for 66. Kyle Pitts had that one nice 50-yard catch to kind of kick things off in this game. And then all he had after that was 1 for 9. So 2 for 59 for him. You want to see more. Bijan, 2 for 21 in the air. And again, Ray McLeod, 2 for 17. So he'll be a factor as well. But, Kansas City's defense, you got to tip your cap to them. They played their butts off. They looked really, really good. Again, this is defending champs. They're the team to knock off right now, and they're going to add some pieces. Don't be surprised if they add a cornerback. Don't be surprised if they add another wide receiver to add some depth there. This team looks really, really good and primed for another Super Bowl run. They're going to the Chargers this week. I like Kansas City in that one. Spoke about it before. I think that's going to be a get-right game for this offense because, again, they keep winning, but they're not playing good ball. Atlanta, meanwhile, hosting New Orleans. I think that's a get-right game for them. That's going to be a tough challenge, though. 2 good offenses. I think that's going to be a really fun game as well. So looking forward to that one. 2 games left, guys. Jaguars at the Bills. Bills smoked them. This game was over in the 1st quarter. Bills put up 13. They hang 34 at half. They're up 34-3. Really, they just coasted after that. So we're looking at a Super Bowl contender in the Buffalo Bills, a well-structured offense, just a well-built team. Jaguars look terrible. Trevor Lawrence looks horrendous. Doug Peterson is on the hot seat. This entire roster is on the hot seat as far as I'm concerned. But let's look at the stats. Trevor Lawrence, 178 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks. He averaged 4.7 yards per pass. I mean, just horrendous. Mac Jones came in and looked better than him, 5 of 8 for 22 yards. This is just pathetic. I feel like we give him a pass because he was the number 1 overall pick and he came from Clemson, and I don't really know why, but he looks bad. And this is a coaching problem. It's a play calling problem, but it's a Trevor Lawrence problem. Travis Etienne, 11 for 68. He looked better, but again, Tank Bigsby should be knocking at the door there. He needs more touches, in my opinion. 2 for 9 for him. Dearness Johnson, 2 for 12. He looked pretty good. Christian Kirk, 8 for 79. Don't want any part of this offense. If I want one guy, it's Brian Thomas Jr., but even him, he goes 5 for 48 in a game where you thought maybe he would get some garbage time. Nothing there. So 9 targets. You'd like to see that, but not the production. For the Bills, where to begin? Josh Allen, fantastic. 263 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. This O-line looks incredible. Granted, the Jaguars defense looked pathetic, but Allen, 44 yards on the ground. James Cook, 39 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Ray Davis, 22, and he added a TD. Ty Johnson, 3 for 18. The whole team ran all over the Jags. It was just an absolute bloodbath on Monday night. Khalil Shakir, 6 for 72 and a touchdown. At some point, that stops becoming a fluke, and he is a legit fantasy starter. He's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers, so we should be treating him as such. I don't think he's a legit wide receiver 1, but we should think about him as a wide receiver 2, maybe a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. But clearly, he has the ability, if the Bills want to make him the guy in this offense. I just think they're going to spread it around quite a bit, kind of like the Chiefs do. So it's a copycat league. The Chiefs do that better than anyone. You never know who's going to go off in that offense. I think the Bills are trying to mimic that. James Cook, 4 for 48 through the air. Dalton Kincaid, that's his coming out party, 3 for 41 and a touchdown. Could have been much bigger for him. I think he's going to have even better days ahead. So if you're a Kincaid owner, you should feel pretty good. I certainly am. Keon Coleman, first touchdown of his rookie campaign, 1 for 24. Again, brighter days ahead for him. But what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 guys catching passes from Josh Allen. That's what they're going to do. They're going to spread the ball. So you'd love to see that. Love to see the way this team's playing. And I'm a Bills fan. They look so good. And good luck, Baltimore. They're walking into a buzzsaw there, but that should be the game of the week next week. So Buffalo going to Baltimore, Sunday Night Football. That should be a fun one. Meanwhile, Jacksonville going to Houston, a mad Houston team that just got beat up in Minnesota. Let the bloodbath continue. I think the Texans wipe them clean. So I want no part of that game. And then our final game of the week, Washington Commanders taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, surprising everyone on national TV. They come out of this one with a W. The story has to be Jaden Daniels. 21 of 23, 254 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He did take 2 sacks, but again, that O-line isn't great. It's getting the job done. He looked so comfortable in the pocket. 12 carries for him, 39 yards and a touchdown. Eckler adds a touchdown on the ground, 35 yards. Brian Robinson, touchdown, 33 yards on the ground. The whole offense had it going. Terry McLaurin, we all saw that beautiful deep ball to ice the game for a touchdown. He had 4 for 100 and a TD. Luke McCaffrey, 3 for 44. Zach Ertz, 5 for 38. Noah Brown, 3 for 29. They didn't need the supporting cast to do much in this one. It was pretty much all Terry McLaurin, but Jaden Daniels carried the squad on his back. So love to see that. Joe Burrow, he looked really good to me. This was not a Joe Burrow problem. This was a Cincinnati defense problem. So Burrow finishes the game 29 of 38, 324 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He was sacked twice, but no INTs. Chase Brown looked like the better running back in this game, 7 for 62. He averaged almost 9 yards a carry. He needs more work. They got to feed him. Zach Moss, still serviceable, though. RB2 with RB1 upside, 58 yards on the ground with a touchdown. He also added 5 catches for 39 yards through the air, which you'd love to see that. You want to see some of that for Chase Brown as well. Great receiving back in his own right. Jamar Chase, 6 for 118 and 2 TDs. Andre Yoshevich, 5 for 52, another touchdown for this kid. He needs to be on all fantasy rosters. You might be able to start him at this point. Again, T. Higgins is coming back, and they kind of, slowed his way back into the offense. But Yoshevich, he passes the eye test. Great route runner, good hands. He had a nice touchdown to kind of keep this game alive. And then we all saw what happened at the end there. Jaden Daniels just absolutely crushed the Cincinnati hopes. So great game. Cincinnati's not done yet, but they're about to go to Carolina. Imagine if Carolina beats them. If Carolina beats them and Cincinnati goes 0-4, we could be looking at a lost season already 4 weeks in. Washington, meanwhile, goes to Arizona, so a really tough test. Hopefully they don't get too high here after this game. Really bad Cincinnati defense going to a really good Arizona defense. They're going to be in for a rude awakening if they think that game is going to go anywhere near how this game went. So Cliff Kingsbury, I feel like we need to talk about him. Great. He called a great game. It was just, he set Jaden Daniels up for success, talked about it with LaFleur, talked about it with McVay, some of these other coaches. Great job finally opening up the offense. He kind of kept Jaden Daniels to some of those short throws in the first 2 weeks of the season, opened it up as that game went along, and Jaden Daniels looked so comfortable. So kudos to Cliff. A lot of people were saying that he was the problem in Arizona. I don't necessarily know if that's the case. A lot of times you see that these head coaches aren't good head coaches, but in fact are great coordinators. I know that all too well with my New York Giants. So Cliff Kingsbury, one of the best performances of the week by him. So that's going to wrap up the show. That was a little bit longer than I expected. We went over an hour, so not what we want. But the good news is my 2-year-old is still sleeping. So as long as she's sleeping, I'm happy. I'm just opening up the chat here, and it looks like I have a question from Pokey Squid. I have Kyren Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Kincaid, Najee, Keon Coleman, and Brian Thomas Jr. How should I improve my team? Okay, so that's a tough question. Oh, he also says Puka and Kyler as well. So Puka's obviously on IR. Kyler says QB. I would be looking at improving your wide receiver depth and running back situation. I would sell high on Kyren Williams. I would sell high on J.K. Dobbins. I would sell high on Najee Harris. All three of those guys are off to relatively good starts, and I do not think they have long-term value this season, or at least not the long-term value of a Derrick Henry or a Bijan Robinson. So if you can package those guys up, if you can package Kyren Williams and J.K. Dobbins for a Derrick Henry, for a Bijan Robinson, even for a Devon Achane, I don't think Achane is going to have weeks like last week. I think that was a really rough game for him. He might have another rough game coming up this week, but better days ahead. They will get Tua back, it sounds like. So buy low on Achane, sell high on your guys. That's how you're going to make your running back situation better. You have a great quarterback situation, really good tight end. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously. Love Jamar Chase, but you need some depth. Keon Coleman, BTJ, good players, really good players. In Dynasty, those are great values. But season long, those are two teams in the Bills and the Jaguars that spread it around. And they're not going to have your typical wide receiver one. Forget about the Bills with Stephon Diggs. Keon Coleman is not Stephon Diggs. They're not going to use a wide receiver like they used Stephon Diggs. So try to trade those guys. See if you can sell high on Coleman. He just had a touchdown. See if you can sell high on BTJ. He's coming off of 3 straight good weeks. Target someone like Jaden Reed. Green Bay came out of the gates firing. Jaden Reed looked like the guy. Of course, Jordan Love gets injured. We haven't seen that offense with Jordan Love. Jaden Reed's been serviceable, but not the same wide receiver that he was before. See if you can package those two guys up and get Jaden Reed, because Jordan Love's coming back potentially as soon as this week, and I think he's going to be an instant top 15 wide receiver. All right, so that wraps it up. Unless there's any more questions, feel free to toss them in the chat. Again, appreciate you guys joining me. Sorry for my throat. I've been dealing with it for a couple of days, so constantly clearing it and trying to get right over here. But again, appreciate you joining me. Please like the video, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. It's @FantasyUmpire. I'm Danny Kitchen. I'll be doing this, I should say. I was going to say trying, but let's talk it into existence. I'll be doing this every week, weekly recap. I missed last week, but not going to happen again. And again, just kind of going over the week, key injuries, key takeaways, looking at the next week ahead, and then waiver claims. So if you like this, please try to help me build this channel. Let me know how I can improve. If you're another fantasy analyst, expert out there, I'd love to have someone else on the show and kind of work with other people too. So definitely holler at me. Let me know if you have time to jump on. Love to just talk football. So yeah, appreciate it, guys. And good luck in week 4.